Here we are, I'm Kyle O'Reilly, and this is the Here We Are show powered by CSN. I'm very happy to have Mr. City League Gar, Mr. Art of War, Tony Angelov, sat beside me for a good old yarn here today. We're going to cover Art of War 22, which is coming up on March the 17th. We're going to talk the history of Tony's fight career and his progression into being the head of City League Gar. We're also going to touch on some trippy experiences and kicking the crap out of some 10-year-olds. Tony, thanks for coming along, mate. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Big event coming up. Art of War 22.
Yeah.
March the 17th, St. Paddy's Day.
It is.
It is.
I forgot about that.
So we'll have the Guinnesses flowing
Good
on
idea.
Sunday, March the 17th. On paper, I reckon probably one of the strongest cards you've put on for a little while. Main event, Michael Isaac versus Jeffrey Kelly,
Yes.
massive.
Yeah.
And then even the co-main, John Varkey versus John Anderson.
Yeah.
Big scraps.
Yeah.
How'd you manage to put them ones together?
Well, it's really, I just work with what I get. John Varkey was actually a bit of a surprise. I know he's focused on MMA, and
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on having any MMA fights on this show. And he messaged me asking about the show, and I thought, oh, he wants to fight on it. And I said, oh yeah, it's on this date. Do you want to fight? You know, I'll try and find someone for you. And he said, oh, it's actually, I'm training this young kid, and I was hoping you could get him a fight. But if you can get me one, I'll take it. And John Anderson was also messaging me, man, I want to fight on the show.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, look, they're about the same weight. And so, yeah, we teed that up, and also managed to get John Varkey's young protege on the card as well. He'll be at the beginning of the card and give John some time to warm up and get ready for his co-main event.
And from City League Gar side of things, like who've you got lined up?
We've got 4 very new fighters, 2 brothers, Malachi and Judah O'Day. Judah just had his debut at the end of last year on the ETK Sunday sessions.
Okay.
Had a very successful win, and his younger brother Malachi is having his debut on this show. We've got Katie McCleaver, who came to us last year. She's done some training in other places, but she's just 16-year-old girl, great attitude, like just the perfect kind of student you want to have in the gym. And we have Sean Neary, who's having his second kickboxing fight, but has a lot of Taekwondo experience. You might have seen him, you would have seen him on the last show. And so I think that's also one of the fights to look out for, because he's very impressive in the ring.
Bjorn Haycock's fighting as well. He's I think a fairly regular on Art of War.
First time we had him was also on the last show.
Yeah.
He was the main event, and he fought one of our other guys, Shai Levine. They were about the same weight, and so after Sean's debut, I thought he's ready for a step up, and matched him with Bjorn, who was also looking to fight again. So
Because Bjorn's done a bit of MMA in the past.
he has. I'm not too sure to what extent. I don't know if he's fought in MMA.
Yeah.
I think he's fought in Thailand.
Okay.
And he may have done the Alta program, Warrior, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's more than capable, as we saw in the last show. He's a tough boy and got some talent, so that's another good one.
Something to look forward to. Like I said, on paper, it's a fantastic card, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And outdoors,
I was just about to say, like, where's that come from? Because we're sort of used to Te Atatu Peninsula. Sunday now. Because normally you do it on like bank holidays or public holidays. Like you'll do it on
it became
Thursday.
a bit of a thing the last few shows, because I do it on the Thursday night, and then we'd have a 3-day weekend to kind of recover or have a bender or whatever. But no. I've been wanting to do an outdoor show for years. My partner Kimberly, soon after we met, she was totally new to fight sport, and she came along to a few of the shows, and she said, oh, you should do an outdoor show. It'd be a cool vibe. And I've been to a few in the past, not many. And it is a really good vibe. It's different atmosphere, having the open air. And the King's Cup in Thailand at the end of the year is always a big outdoor show. But we've never been able to find a suitable venue until last year. This venue, the Cuvée Bar at Ellerslie Racecourse, popped up. There was supposed to be a boxing fight night. Craig Thompson was going to put on a show there. And for whatever reason, last minute, they moved it to the ABA. But I thought, nah, I'm going to do one
Nice.
there. And so, yeah, here we are, a week out.
Yeah.
Hopefully
That will bring...
Sun's out next weekend. They've got a roof, so it doesn't matter.
I hope maybe like not too much sun is out, because I'm slightly worried about sitting there for 4 hours commentating.
Nah.
And
they do have a roof, so we'll be.
I'll bring an umbrella.
Yeah.
So what kind of, because a lot of promoters, when they put on shows, they do try to like put their fighters at the forefront. They do try and sort of get their names out there. What fighters are you excited about at City League R at the moment? I mean, there was one, and I think I've spoken to you about him in the past, Devontae Pulataha, who's injured at the moment from memory. Didn't he hurt himself? He was so excited. So exciting.
Yeah, he actually hasn't been training with us for quite some time. Oof. Well, this whole year, really. Yeah, he had some personal issues going on.
Yeah.
And kind of just, I'm not on bad terms with him at all, but I've just let him do his thing and sort of things out outside of the gym, and we'll see what happens.
Sometimes you've got to do that. Let people grow, like give them the space they need, and you'll be there if he wants to come back.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, like you say, he is a hugely talented fighter, all the potential in the world. But just unfortunately, things happen outside of the gym, as they do. Yeah. And yeah, we've got all these fighters that are on the card I'm excited about next week. They're all young and very new to the sport, but they all show good things. Yeah.
Okay. Art of War for me, I think it was the first show that I went to after moving to Auckland was the Foul Vake, where he knocked the bloke out of the ring. It was at the Vincent Street YMCA.
Oh, at the YMCA, yes. Art of War 20, I think.
No, way before
that.
No,
sorry. Art of War 10. Yeah, Art of War 10. Slav was the main event.
Yes,
Slav's big comeback fight. Yeah.
So that was like, so I've always sort of held you guys in real high regard. Yeah. And CSN's first live stream was Art of War 15.
15, yes.
In August 2021. Like, how do you think, like, the inclusion now, or not necessarily partnership, but the inclusion of CSN, the inclusion of live streaming and a library or archive of fights helps with fighters' visibilities, not just like City League R fighters, but Kiwi fighters that want to get their names out there? It sort of it helps to sort of grow the sport and the visibility.
Yeah, I think it takes us to the next level, and especially eventually fighters looking for sponsorship or looking for sponsorship. The more eyes that see the event, see the fighters, the better the sponsor you can attract. You know, that's what it's about, just getting your name out there. So yeah, hopefully it just continues to grow and CSN gets bigger and Art of War gets bigger.
So.
And, yeah.
We might start getting paid, eh? That'd be nice.
Yeah.
But like in terms of City League R as well, because I think we're coming up on nearly 50 years since
Next
City
year
League
will
R
be
was
50
established.
years. It's 1975 established, before I was born. And it's just been 10 years since I took over the gym.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We had a 10-year anniversary sparring last week, which was cool. And yeah, time flies, man.
It does.
It's scary.
But how was that 10 years at the helm? Because that must have been quite, I'm guessing, a bit of a daunting prospect of taking over such an established, because City League R or Sifu bringing Muay Thai over to New Zealand essentially and creating City League R, it must have been quite daunting to sort of take over that mantle from Sifu.
A little bit, definitely. It wasn't ever on the cards, like it wasn't one day I'm going to take over this gym at all. It just organically happened, and things the way they do. I was working at a full-time job and selling boxing equipment. Yeah. And so I had dealt with all the gyms up and down the country, and so I had a good knowledge of all the trainers. And then Sifu, getting on in age, decided that he wanted to step down from running the gym. He still wanted to put his shows on, but just the day-to-day running of the gym and making sure the boys were training was getting a bit much. So yeah, I was ready to leave that job, and just worked out.
Stars aligned.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was going to say, like, what about Tony Angelov sort of screamed out to Sifu, right, this is
that's
the
a good
successor?
question.
Right.
I don't know.
What
Maybe
do
I
you
was
think?
just, well, I was just always a dedicated student, honest, loyal. I think maybe he just saw those qualities in me and thought I'd be worthy of carrying on the name. So, bit of weight on the shoulders, but I think, I hope I'm doing all right with it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because you started training at City League R in 2000.
2000, just to, like turn of the millennium. That's when I started, January 2000.
Was that training in general or just training at City League R?
Well, training in general. I started not long before that. In 99, I started getting a bit of fitness, like just riding a bike. I was really unfit at the time, like not overweight or anything, just unfit. And I started getting fit, and then I decided I wanted to do Thai boxing, and I went to a store that was selling like punch bags and gloves and stuff. And funnily enough, that's the guy that was importing all this gear from Thailand was the guy I ended up working for.
Okay.
And then, that was NZ Boxer at the time. He sold the business. But anyway, I asked him, where do I go to train? He goes, I've got 2 recommendations. You can either go to City League R, down the bottom of Anzac Ave in town. That's more of a traditional Thai style gym. Or you can go to Balmoral League R, which is like, same family of gyms, but a little bit different style training. And the traditional Thai style, like authenticity, screamed out to me like that's the place I need to be. And so walked in beginning of the year, and it was just by coincidence, it was the night of weigh-in they were having. Sifu was having a show the next night. And so he just gave me some posters for his promotion that was on the next night. Called one of the senior students over and said, show this boy some basics, and we just did a bit of pads, and all these fighters started coming in that were fighting the following night for their weigh-in. So I went along to the fight night the next night. It was at the Downtown Convention Centre. It was probably one of the last shows they ever had there. And I was just blown away. I was hooked. Chopper was the main event. He knocked out a Japanese boy. There was a bunch of guys from City League R fighting international opponents. Yeah. One thing we don't get as much as we used to. Sifu used to bring over Thais all the time, and that's part of the reason the boys from League R got so good, because they were fighting international opponents regularly. And so just the country as a whole, the level got raised pretty quickly.
Yeah. There's some massive names from League R.
Yeah. And so, I just kept training, and then towards the end of that first year, I had my first fight, and again, Chopper was the main event, and I was the first fight on the night. And the night before at the weigh-in, they said, oh, you don't actually have an opponent. I don't know. They didn't give me much explanation, but whatever, the guy had pulled out or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, all that training. And Chopper had brought a friend with him who was a pig hunter from up north. No training, no formal training. He's like, oh, my mate will fight you.
Yeah, but just tough.
I was like, yeah, sweet, okay. And we're the same weight? Yeah, okay. And in my head, I'm like, this guy's done no training. I've been training for nearly a whole year. Yeah. This is going to be a walk in the park. And so I get in the ring the next night, and I've never been hit hard like that in my whole life, man. Like, he just comes out swinging. But, I had enough technique and fitness to stop him in the second round. But it was a wake-up call, man. I was like, shit, this is not like sparring. Yeah. This guy wants to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, I guess that would be a bit like tough. When you're a trained person fighting a trained person, there's you kind of know what to expect in a certain way. Exactly. But when you're fighting someone untrained, that's a whole new ball game, ain't it?
And I was 17 years old fighting like a guy who's, I don't know, a bit older than me, in his 20s. And I was just young and cocky. Not cocky, but just confident. Yeah. And it was just...
Slightly misplaced confidence.
Not, exactly, yeah. But it was good for me, because I realised what it's really like in the ring, and what I need to do to be ready for the next one.
And I guess that would have been like quite a good sort of learning curve for you. I mean, you've obviously gone on to do all right for yourself, 2 times NZ champ. Yeah.
I wouldn't consider myself one of the greats. I had a very inconsistent record. I'd win, lose, but my level of competition steadily rise. I fought better and better guys, and I had some great wins, and I had some bad losses. Yeah. And yeah, I won a couple of New Zealand titles and fought in China a few times. And yeah, when I started, that was never my goal. I want to be a champion. I just started because I liked the feeling of training, and that's where it ended up.
Well, that's what you sort of touched on. You said like that the year prior to you joining City League, you'd started doing like a bit of cardio and getting some fitness.
Yeah.
And then you decided, I want to, like, what made you want to pick Thai boxing or Muay Thai as opposed to, I don't know, rugby or something?
I always had an interest in it. I did
Yeah.
karate for a little while when I was a kid. I must
Yeah.
have been about 7 or 8. I didn't do it for very long. It was probably half a year or a year or something. And I played a lot of Street Fighter when I was a kid.
Nice.
Street Fighter 2 at the dairy. Like, watched a lot of martial arts,
Yeah.
like kung fu movies, old school movies. And so I just had an interest in martial arts. But I don't know, I think looking back, there was a couple of situations that I found myself in where I thought it would be good if I knew how to fight and protect myself. I used to play in a band, believe it or not. And we'd play gigs, and being young, there's like older guys that sometimes get, a bit
rowdy,
violent, have a few beers, and I was like, man, I should learn how to fight. And so that was probably part of it, just a combination of things. And then, next thing you know, I'm at the gym every day. It takes over my life. I get obsessed with it. Yeah.
Who do you reckon was probably like your biggest fight or your most memorable opponent? Like you fought Ants Nansen.
Fought Ants Nansen twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely up there. And we're good friends. Like, I don't see him very often, but after the first time we fought, we caught up out the back in the changing room and just started chatting. And just one of those people I just clicked with instantly, and we just got along really well. We were the same age at the time. I think we were both 20 or 21, 20, I think, and both expecting our first child.
Yeah.
We just had heaps in common, and and then went on and then ended up fighting him again many years later at heavyweight. So the first time was about super middleweight.
Yeah.
We both, grew up, got bigger, had our
I mean,
kids,
he's
put
really
on some weight.
fucking grown up.
Yeah. And we ended up fighting at heavyweight back in 2011. That was one of my titles. That was a WMC heavyweight title. Yeah, so that was definitely one of the most memorable. There's a couple. One of the biggest name I ever fought was Nathan Carnage Corbett in Australia. At the time, he was unbeatable. He was the 8-time world champion at cruiserweight. And one of our boys, Steve Harm, one of the fighters from the gym, had gone over to Australia to live and train. And he called me up one day and he was like, hey bro, they're looking for someone to fight Carnage. No one will fight him. Are you keen? Because I had sort of talked about it like as an aspiration, like if you fight Carnage, you're at the top.
You've made it.
But I never really fought my way up to that level. Like when he asked me, I was like, let me think about it. And then I was like, yeah, man, like this is like a shortcut.
Yeah.
And it's like, no matter what happens, unless I get seriously injured, of course, but no matter what happens, I'm going to get better after this. Like this is an opportunity.
The best of the best.
Yeah. And so I went over there, felt great, trained really hard, jumped in the ring, got a hiding. Like, first round was okay. I threw a lot just to keep busy.
Yeah.
Didn't tried not to put too much power, just try to stay busy to keep him off me, and it seemed to work. And then when I got back to the corner after the first round, my corner was like, you got to slow down your pace. You're throwing too much, you're going to get tired, which had happened in many fights. I often got tired. I train hard, but just, man, you just get exhausted in there. So bell rings for the second round. I'm in my head is like, okay, I've got to slow down. He's just in my face, like ding ding. It's like he teleported from his corner. So, and then it was just a downward slope from there, man. He dropped me 3 times. I kept getting up.
In that second round?
3 times in the second round, I kept getting up, and the third time, the ref waved it off.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm good to go. And then I looked up, they had these big screens, and my nose was like sideways. And I was like, oh yeah, sweet. Okay. And I think it was 3 knockdown rule anyway, so it was, it was.
It's a kind of expected.
Probably looking after me. I don't think I was going to win, but I was so fit, and I was ready to go. I would have kept fighting to go out of my shield.
Well, you kind of like you're like very much a Muay Thai guy, and you like Art of Wars. You've started bringing MMA in, but majority of the fights they are either Mod Thai or Full Thai, and I think you've got 12 fights for next week, and I think
think this is the
Like,
most
8 of them
full
are
Thai
full,
rules fights we've ever had on a card, which I'm stoked about because
Massive.
not everyone wants to fight with elbows, and I understand, but to some extent, but like it's not Muay Thai if you're not throwing elbows. You know, it's kickboxing or modified Muay Thai is like a made up thing. It's but you know, we work with what we've got and who wants to fight under what rules. I've done a bit of MMA. I've been doing MMA for a while.
I was going to say, you've had one MMA fight.
I've had
right?
3
or at least
MMA
one
fights.
pro MMA
I had
fight.
3 MMA fights, lost them all.
Shit.
But I started it. Eugene and I started at the same time.
Yeah.
We started doing jiu-jitsu together, and then I think I might have fought before him. I think I might have had the first MMA fight. I can't remember, but like this is the Wild West days. It was just an MMA super fight on an ETK kickboxing card.
Nice.
And it was pride rules. You could kick them in the head on the ground. Like, my opponent didn't come to the weigh-in, so I was like quite nervous. I was like, man, how big is this guy going to be? He was bigger than me, and as soon as the bell rang, he just took me down like instantly. I was like, fuck, here we go. But I managed to stay safe. I had him in this guillotine that was never going to work in hindsight, but I thought it was on, and I was squeezing, and I just squeezed with everything I had for about a minute, and then his head popped up. I was like, okay.
Yeah, and your arms were done. Your
arms
pride
were
was
done.
bad.
Yeah, but I managed to sweep him. I think he got to mount. I managed to sweep him. I was on top, and then the bell rang. That was the first round. Second round, bell rang. I was ready for the rush again. And so I changed stance. I dropped him and then just like got excited and rushed over to him to trying to start soccer kick him. He got to his feet, took me down again, and that was the rest of the fight. He just like on top of me. Didn't get too hurt. Like I managed to protect myself on the ground, but just couldn't get him off or sweep me. Anyway, so I've been involved in MMA a long time. Big fan of Pride when it was around before the UFC. Well, UFC was running, but Pride was the bigger show. Pride was like the mecca.
Do you reckon you'll bring Pride rules back to Art of War?
That was the plan. I wanted to.
Are you allowed to?
Well, in New Zealand, you can do it. We luckily don't have any athletic commissions or anything we've got to adhere to. But
so Art of War
put
23?
a post, must have been a couple of years ago, up on I think it was the Muay Thai forum or the MMA forum on Facebook saying, I want to put some Pride rules fights on, anyone keen? And it was crickets, man.
There must be some.
Yeah. I think there might have been 1 or 2, but it wasn't enough interest to make it happen. Still keen though, if anyone's out there listening.
Like so,
yes. For old time's sake.
Anyone back at home, any fighters watching now, if you're interested in Pride rules MMA fights, get in touch with Tony. Get in touch with CSM. We're gonna make it happen. Art of War 23, bringing Pride back to Aotearoa.
I like it.
That would be mean.
Yeah.
So how did the transition from Muay Thai fighter, how did you go from being a Muay Thai fighter, MMA fighter, to being a coach, a promoter, a referee, a judge? Because you've done it.
Yeah, I have done most like aspects of the sport, and it's all just happened the way just naturally. Yeah, like I said, I never planned on running the gym. I just fell into it, and I still find it hard, to be honest, a little bit. At like the transition, I still see myself as a fighter. You know, like I find it hard to put myself into I'm the coach, do what I say. I still see myself as like one of these guys, but I'm getting on in the years. So
well, you came back, didn't you? In 2018,
2022.
You fought again?
2 years ago, I fought in the King of the Ring cruiserweights just after COVID. Yeah. And
what brought that on?
Lockdown.
Yeah.
Lockdown, not having to run the gym, well, not allowed to run. Yeah, not allowed to be in my own gym. Just had all this time all of a sudden. So I was like, I'm going to start just training myself. And like, I was doing push-ups, chin-ups, all these like body weight exercises, going for runs. And I just started getting and feeling really good. And then just coincidentally, Jason was running the King of the Ring, and I think I'd maybe been talking to Slav, like, I wouldn't mind having another fight. I'm in pretty good shape, and I think Slav sort of hinted to Jason, Tony will jump in there if you ask him. And so, next thing, Jason's like, do you want to do King of the Ring? He's like, yeah, okay. And I felt amazing, man. I felt so fit. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life. Everything went well up until the fight night. And then just full credit to my opponent, Robert Dean. Robert Nari Dean. He just, he weathered the storm. I came on pretty strong in the first round. And yeah, I think my plan was like just try and get him out of there quickly, which is never a good plan.
No.
Like I think I knew this. Like I've had enough fights now to know that just if a knockout comes, it comes. But don't go searching for it. But for something stupid, as I do often, just came over me and went quite hard in the first round. He weathered the storm, just good guard, just came forward, and then I can't even remember if I lasted he got me with a kick to the liver anyway. Beautiful, just perfectly placed kick to the liver, which I don't think I'd ever felt like to that degree in sparring. And just instant, it's like the off switch. I just shut me down, went to my knees, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go. And I just breathed, and I could hear the count, and I stood up, and I looked at the screen. This was my mistake. I looked at the screen to see how much time I had left in the round, because I was like, okay, how long do I have to survive for? And then I think there was about a minute left, maybe a little bit less. Can't remember if this was the first or the second round now. But anyway, look back at Clyde Cowley, the referee. Love you, Clyde. But he just waved it off, and I was good to go. Like, it may not have gone well if he'd let me continue. I might have got hit in the liver again and gone down, and that would be it. 2 knockdown rule. But like, I wanted to go out on my shield. I was ready to fight. But his reasoning for it, when I spoke to him afterwards, was you were looking all over the place. You weren't really.
You weren't focused. You weren't with it.
But it was like distinctly, I remember I was looking to see how much time I left. How much? How long do I have to survive before I'm going to get a break? Anyway, doesn't matter. It's in the past.
So you were like, I'd say like a mature gentleman in 2022.
Nice way of saying old man.
No. I wanted to, because I've had a couple of issues. We touched on it before that I've put on a little bit of weight recently, right? And I was thinking that, like, because I'm in the industry to an extent, like, from a talker perspective. But like, I'm thinking of the motivation of potentially having a scrap might be what it takes for me to finally sort of knuckle down and sort my shit out.
100%.
What kind of advice would you give to me specifically as someone that's sort of done it
out of War 23,
an advanced stage? Well, Pride rules.
There you go. No, just I think if you've got that little inkling of a thought that you might want to do it, I would encourage it, because as we said before, time flies, and you will get to a time where you won't be able to physically, you won't do it. So, I'm a big believer in not regretting things, and
it's on my bucket list. Like I have
at
to
least
do
once,
it.
you know, and then because you learn a lot about yourself, and it's the ultimate challenge.
When's Art of War 23?
Well, I don't have a date set yet, so let's talk afterwards.
Because I'd actually be keen.
But usually mid-year. I usually do it around July, August. Just
because I've got to lose about 20 kilos, I reckon, Tone, to fight someone like around my height.
The other thing I would suggest is making sure, and this is not saying you have to fight on Art of War, wherever you fight, make sure you trust whoever's matchmaking you. Because that's it. It's important. You don't want to go up against some like up and coming young future champion. Someone it's an even fight, a fair fight.
What do you reckon you preferred, like out of fighting, coaching, promoting, reffing, judging? Like where's the preference lie?
Oh, that's a good one.
Because there's like challenges in every single.
They're definitely all challenging. I do enjoy promoting after the show. But leading up to it it's probably more stressful than any of the others you mentioned. Like there's just so many moving parts, so many things out of your control. Fighters pulling out last minute, and it's just it takes its toll on your mental health. One of
my favorite, I think, commentary moments was a fight that you were referee for.
Oh yeah.
It was Nikora Lee Kingi versus Conor Gillan at one of Sifu's
Oh
shows.
yes.
The best of the best.
Yeah.
Like Australia versus New Zealand. Now, like we were just, me and Steve, I think broke every bit of audio equipment that we had available, because when Nikora knocked him out, well, I reckon knocked him out in the first round.
Yeah.
He was convulsing on, like he
Yeah.
was going like that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you step in? Like, what did you see that we didn't? That you went,
I'll tell
oh,
you what
he
I
can
saw.
still
I'll tell you,
fight.
because I remember, I think I rewatched it and heard your commentary. I think you badmouthed me for letting it continue. Here's the thing. I hate seeing fights get stopped too early. I know what it takes to get in the ring and to have someone, like I was saying before, someone stop it when you want to continue. Even if it's for your own benefit to look after you. To have someone take that away from you, I'm not a big fan of.
Especially because he came over from Australia.
That's it. He'd come
well.
all the way. He was the main event. To just cut his night short without giving him all the opportunity.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I looked at him. He was like pretty much out. And I was ready to call it. And he just came to life like a zombie. Like he just stood up. And I said, do you want to continue? And he just looked at me. He's like, just the most intense yes. Like there was no doubt in his mind that he wanted to keep fighting. So I let him go.
And he made it through the round.
He made it through the round. Like, you know, he didn't have too much to offer after that.
Nah.
But I gave him as good a chance as he could have got.
Yeah. I remember in the second round when he got knocked down for the second time, and I think that was when we called it, or when you called it.
Yeah,
that's when I was going, Tony,
Don't
you've got to stop it. You've got to stop it.
If he dies, he dies. Nah, I mean, yeah, because I've watched, you know, over the 20-something years I've been doing this, I've watched countless amount of fights, and I've seen guys come back from the brink of death, like especially in Thailand. I've seen like, oh, this is over, don't let this, gets up and wins the fight. So, you know, I know it's possible. It's just like, how strong is your spirit? So I like to see how strong someone's spirit is.
Is there a certain, like, I think you'd probably get it from a promoter's perspective as well, or in your position as a promoter as well as a referee, more so than a trainer or a judge. Do you have like a sense of responsibility, like not like a dread or not like a negative responsibility, but you feel responsible for these people that you're either making fight on or allowing to fight on one of your promotions, or in a fight that you're reffing? Do you have like a certain sense of responsibility for their welfare and their well-being, I guess? Like, does that add like an extra element of pressure?
A little bit, and that's why I always try to match fights as evenly as possible. I do not like seeing mismatches. I don't want to put my guys against someone I know they're going to beat, because it's not good for anyone. I know, like, you know, in boxing they have a whole thing where prospects, they fight guys that are almost a guaranteed win to pad their record up, and then they start challenging themselves. But Thai boxing is different. I think you're going to gain something, no matter that. You don't be attached to the outcome, whether you win or lose. You just want to have a good fight that's going to level you up afterwards. And so, yeah, I'm big on matching the fights fairly. I have good relationships with all the trainers I deal with, so I trust their honesty about their fighters. You know, because there's stories of, it doesn't happen so much anymore, I think, but you know, trainers lying about how many fights their fighters had, and then it turns out.
You still do get it. We see it.
Yeah.
Like when like, obviously without naming any names, we contact fighters, we contact
sad,
coaches, and ask for details for commentary. And like, there's some trainers and some fighters that either won't give you any details, or you know for a fact that the details they're giving you are incorrect.
Yeah.
And it does, like, it creates an
and it's not
element
good for
of
our
danger.
sport.
No, it's not.
It's not, because if someone gets seriously hurt, you know, it's going to make things harder for everyone. Like, you know, in Australia, to put on a show, it's a lot harder. They have a lot of rules and regulations. They have the Combat Sports Authority or board. You know, there's just a lot more hoops to jump through, which we don't need. So, yeah, if everyone's just honest and upfront and works together, it's only going to be better. Yeah.
So your relationship with these trainers, and I mean, you've now been in the fight game for coming up to 25 years. Yeah. Like, how does your relationship with the fighters, the trainers, the other people in this circle, how does that sort of expand to outside of the gym and outside of fighting in general?
Well, I think.
Like, do you count them as your close? Like, have you got like close mates that?
Yeah. I think because we're still quite a
Tight-knit community.
Yeah. It's like a niche sport, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a mainstream sport, and even though we're in the ring, like at war, we're all the same family. We're all doing the same thing. So when we see each other outside of, you know, being opposite each other in the ring, it's all love, I think. Yeah.
And what do you do, like, because I think bonding with fighters and bonding with trainers and promoters, you probably spar, you train together, whatever. But like, what do you like to do outside of training, outside of fighting? Not necessarily with these people, but just I mean, we said, like, I saw your video on Instagram this morning where you went bungee jumping.
Yeah.
Is that like...
I like adventures, man. I like to go on little adventures, and don't get to very often, you know. I've got a family and just the running of the gym, but yeah, anything that sort of excitement, anything that gets the heart racing, and
You like to dabble in a bit of ayahuasca, I hear.
Where do you hear this?
Well, through the grapevine. Allegedly, there's a bit of dabbling in some experimental psychedelics.
I've tried ayahuasca. Yeah, it's something I wanted to do for a long time.
What made you want to do that, though?
This is for entertainment purposes. It may not have happened, but I'd heard about it, read about it, and I've always wondered about, you know, the big questions like that no one can really answer. Life after death, is there a God? You know, like people tell you answers, but no one really knows for certain. And what I'd heard is this can potentially, you know, help to answer some of those questions. So yeah, the opportunity came up to do it, and I don't know, like, how long have we got?
As long as you need.
What do you want to know? Like,
how was it? Did you have, so like you said, the reason you wanted to do it was because you'd heard that it sort of opened your mind up to those bigger questions. Yeah. Did you have that epiphany?
I did. I had, if we're being completely honest, I'd done DMT before that, like a few years before that, numerous times, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca. Dimethyltryptamine, there you go. Man of culture, I see.
Joe Rogan podcast.
Anyway, so that was more of a sort of significant, like I count that right up there as one of the most significant experiences of my life. Like it was amazing. That really opened me up to the possibility of another realm or dimension, or like it feels more real than that. Like it's like you're seeing the fabric of reality. Like it's hard to put into words without sounding like a bit of
I kind of get it though.
But I don't know if you're familiar with like the filter theory of the brain. Like our brain can only perceive so much of what is actually there. You know, like there's lots of colors we can't see, lots of sounds we can't hear. Like our brain filters it so that we can live day to day.
Even ultraviolet and infrared, we don't see.
Exactly. So it's almost like you're removing that filter and you're seeing what we're actually constructed of. And so this was DMT, and it's very short. It was like 10 minutes. It was all over, and it's not really long enough to understand it.
Right.
And so
you get a glimpse.
What I thought was ayahuasca was just a much longer version of the same thing, which it isn't quite. Like it's similar, but it's not as intense. Or not as intense in the same way. It's hard. You got to do it, and then you know what I'm talking about. Stop me rambling. But I at one stage I just started crying, like just tears started streaming down my face, and I was thinking about all the people in my life that I've encountered and my family, and just felt this overwhelming sense of love from the universe, and I guess that's what people call God. And again, you can't really put it into words, but it just takes over. And then, it lasts quite a few hours. And then, back to reality.
Back to reality as we see it.
Exactly. What is reality? That's the real question.
But does it stay with you? Does that experience stay with you? Because they say the pineal gland, our third eye. Does it sort of open it up a little bit on a more sort of permanent basis, or do you come back to the cold hard truth of life as we know it straight away?
I think the experience and the memory of the experience definitely stays with you, but it's not like, it doesn't really alter, you know, you're back to normal, which is good, I guess. I don't know if you'd want to be stuck there for
Yeah, probably not. Because you can have bad trips. Like I've heard people say that they've had like fairly bad sort of experiences.
Yeah, I've heard the same, and I think I've also heard people say they've had bad experiences, but in hindsight, they were beneficial. Like you gained something out of that bad experience going through it. So, yeah.
Speaking of a potential bad experience and changing the tone and shift of the conversation slightly, a potential bad situation would be you facing off in a fight against an animal.
Oh, here we go.
Right? So, Tony Angelov, what is the biggest animal that you reckon you could successfully take on in a fight?
Well, I'm an animal lover. You know, I don't like the idea of.
Let's say it was a matter of survival.
But maybe if you suggest some animals, I'll tell you whether I think I could take it or not.
Well, Mea Motu reckons that she would successfully take on a lion.
I don't think I would successfully take on a lion.
I reckon a goat. Like I said to her that I reckon I could, not necessarily easily, but I reckon I could confidently go up against a goat. But I was saying I'd love to fight a kangaroo. Like, because we see them.
Kangaroo would be a good challenge.
Yeah, because they're getting a bit brave
bouncy,
as well. Like you see a lot of clips now of them sort of like coming up to humans and trying to fight humans and our dogs, which ain't on. So I reckon just to sort of put them back in their place, I'd like to take on a kangaroo.
I'd probably give a kangaroo a go. I'm not saying I would be successful, but I'd give it a go. Like Nathan Corbett, you know, I'd give it a go. I get stopped in the second round, but we'll put up a fight.
And another one, which Mia went the complete opposite direction in. I said, like, if you had to, and you had to take on a certain amount of, let's say, 10-year-old kids, how many 10-year-olds do you reckon you could just... Yeah, well, so how she reckons none.
I've got a 10-year-old at home.
Yeah,
they'll put up a fight, but, you know,
yeah.
definitely like laying them out one after the other.
And it'd be quite easy, I reckon. She was giving 10-year-olds far too much credit.
Nah.
Like, I reckon 8 I could do.
Fuck those fucking kids.
20?
Jokes. I don't hit my kids ever.
No. But these are other people's kids, bro. I don't care about other people's kids.
Yeah, just line them up. I'll knock them down, man.
Infinite amount of 8-year-olds.
Until I get tired, which would probably happen quite quickly, to be honest.
All right, before we go, Tone, we've sort of highlighted your journey, and it has been a phenomenal journey, and you've built relationships with so many different people from so many different sort of areas and aspects of life and whatever. How does Tony Angelov want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
I guess first and foremost, a good father. You know, that's probably the most important thing, that my kids remember me as a good man, and just something my father told me from a very young age was a real man always keeps his word.
Yeah.
So I want to be known as someone that always kept his word. You know, I do my best. Sometimes you can't, but you know, so long as you do your best. Yeah, just a good man, I guess.
I like that. Tony, thank you very much. Now's the time for you to do a bit of a self-promotion and just let everybody back at home know what's going on.
Art of War 22, March 17th at the Cuvée Bar and Lawn at Ellerslie Racecourse. Tickets are probably sold out by the time you see this, so catch it live on CSN, Sunday 17th, 1 p.m.
Boom.